Alright, now the Wastelands continues the journey of the Quartet towards the Dark Tower and really expands upon Roland's world, unlike what the other two books have done thus far. In terms of the characters, we've got Roland now teaching Eddie and Susanna, whose Odetta and Detta personalities have merged into Susanna, and her and Eddie are lovers. And he's sort of teaching them the ways of the gunslinger now. And it seems to be the way that Ka has decreed that the group be drawn together. In the context of the story, there are going to be some terms which are introduced, which kind of set out things and further expand upon the ideas of some of the lingo of the gunslingers in the Midworld. They're basically at the mercy of Ka, or Destiny, and their little Destiny group, which they call a Quartet, is brought together in order to help Roland upon his quest to the Dark Tower. I love the character expansions which are done on Roland, and we get deeper into his mind, and how he's sort of starting to open up a little bit more to the companions which he has with him, and I love the expansions on the characters of Eddie and Susanna as well. There is not a useless character in this book, which is something that I can't say for a lot of other books I read, because sometimes we do have useless characters which are usually introduced. But with the way the King writes his story, and not just like the people, but like objects and just entire cities become characters unto themselves in this book. We do solve a problem which has been brought up at the beginning of this book, because when in the last book Roland stopped Jake's murder at the hands of Jack Mort, he unintentionally caused a time paradox, which is now tearing up Roland's mind and tearing up Jake's mind since he's in our world. And they kind of have to work to bring him back into Midworld in order to repair the damage before it completely shatters Roland and Jake's minds. And there's a really well done suspenseful scene built up to his return that kind of plants the seeds for some trouble that's going to be coming up ahead of time. And since we have Roland, Eddie, Susanna, and Jake finally brought back in the Midworld, our quartet soon becomes a quintet with the addition of one final character known as Oi, who is a Billy Bumbler. Picture kind of this talking badger who can mirror human speech a little bit. It can't enunciate words exactly perfect. It's kind of built on some choppy syllables. But he does come to be an eventual part of the group. And, you know, the first time I read when they started introducing this character, I was like, oh, hell. And we kind of have like this Disney animal character which is introduced into the group. And he could come off as an annoyance, but he doesn't. As I said, there is not a single useless character in this book. And Oi is one of the best things to read about in here. He proves his worth and sort of becomes an unofficial member of the Quartet. Oi is just a hell of a lot of fun to read about. We have a situation which is built up to in this book, which is that they need to pass over a barren place called the Wastelands, which is like completely desolate and would be harsh if the Quartet was traveling over it in normal means just by walking. So they have to have a build up to them getting to the city of Lud and riding a monorail train out over the Wastelands to the next destination along the beam of the Dark Tower. Now, this book also does a lot of expanding with bringing the beams which hold the Dark Tower together and setting up the path for where the Quartet must follow in order to reach it. And we have some really touching scenes that takes place that kind of expands not only on Roland himself, but what Roland used to be before the Order of the Gunslingers died out. And it's mostly a talking montage throughout this entire scene where the group comes across sort of a ghost town which happens to be inhabited by a few citizens in their golden years. And just seeing the amount of emotion come out of Roland in this, he came off mostly as a hard ass, throughout the first 2 books, but now we start to see the man beneath the wall that he's put up around himself, and it's really good at doing that. But he is still keeping some secrets to himself. The build-up into the battle in the city of Lud against the people who are scavenging and pretty much warring with each other there is pretty good. The introductions of Gasher and the TikTok Man is pretty good. There's a fan service which is done in here for fans of Stephen King, sort of having to do with a particular evil character who has shown up throughout a number of Stephen King books, leaving his mark. He's got a very small cameo in here, but it's still really good. And the matter of Blaine himself, the monorail which they must ride, presents a very precarious situation. Part of the thing is that they build up to actually climbing on board the train, which is run on an artificial intelligence that will take them to where they need to go. But part of the problem is that this computer has been left by itself for so long that it's gradually started to become insane, and it presents a very bad ultimatum to them once they wind up boarding it out of desperation. They get into a riddling contest with the computer on the train, and they can either pose a riddle to it, and if it cannot solve it, it will safely drop them off on their destination. And if they cannot, or if they cannot pose a riddle that the train is unable to solve, it will kill them because the train kind of intends to commit suicide, and it just wants to have one last bout of fun with them. So I really love the suspense that's built up to. The story in the second half of the book can kind of seem to drag on a little bit, but there again, King, being the master writer that he is still able to pull you into the suspense of the moment, and he does really, really good with this particular story. The Wastelands overall is very suspenseful. It is my second favorite book out of the Dark Tower series. And if you can survive the first 2 books, which may be somewhat of a struggle, the payoff in this series, or in this particular volume, is really good. And if this isn't guaranteed to hook you into the series, then you shouldn't even bother with the rest of it. But oh man, this is just a lot of fun, and I think you'd have a lot of fun with it too.